According to the last video, most people skipped to the study section and they were probably disappointed because that whole video was not related too much to studying. So to make it up to you guys, this is a full guide on how you can study during Ramadan. One is for the people who have school, one is for the people who have school and coaching, and another one is for people who don't have coaching or school. Now you may need to customize these routines to your preference. For example, if your Sehri or Iftar is in a different time because you're in a different country. Now the common principles that you may want to keep in mind while making these routines. Firstly, you need to know when your power and your slump hours are in your day, and once you sort of have that, you can customize it into the routine. Or if you're too lazy, you can just follow my own principles, which is keep around 2 of the 4 time slots free to study, which is before Sehri, after Sehri, before Iftar, after Iftar. Before Sehri is pretty self-explanatory, as you will have the energy to drink and eat, so you will have the energy to study. And after Sehri, because you just had your meal and you have a sense of focus, but you also need to have enough sleep to be able to focus, so that's another factor that you should probably keep in mind. Now, me saying you should study before Iftar might be a little contradicting because I just said you need energy to study, but personally in my experience, when I don't have food, I tend to focus more, and I realize it's also the same with a lot of people. But there's also some research to it that you shouldn't actually be studying or working while you're digesting food. Now for the people who are going to put after Iftar in their routine, one thing you want to keep in mind is you don't want to eat too much during Iftar, because then you tend to have a food coma and then you would want to lie down and sleep rather than study. For the people who pray Taraweeh at the mosque, you will get around an hour or so after Iftar. For the people who pray at home, you will get like 3 to 4 hours. Now I'm going to tell you a very unusual study technique that I recognized last year, which is particularly very useful for the people who are praying at home. The basic technique is sort of the Pomodoro timer, but instead of taking a 5-minute break, you pray 2 rakahs of Taraweeh. Now this might be confusing to some people because you might think, how would praying motivate me to study more? But to them, I just want to say, when you decide to pray instead of scrolling on your phone or eat more food, you tend to be more conscious of what you want to do. Because especially if you pray properly and you're not distracted while praying, it's sort of like meditating. I don't exactly know how to explain this. Just try it and you can thank me later. Now for the people who skip directly to this part, I'm not gonna blame you. Now I'm not gonna overcomplicate this section just like most StudyTubers do, because all they really want you to do is buy their course. I just want you to answer one question for me, and keep this question in your brain every single time before you want to go studying, which is, if I only had 1 hour to study for a huge exam, what would I focus on? When I first heard this question, it really made me think, because truthfully, if you only had 1 hour to study for an exam, you wouldn't spend that 1 hour reading your notes, highlighting your notes, highlighting the book, or doing a billion flashcards. Instead, you would do things like study mind maps, do past paper questions, do the Feynman technique. Now personally, for the people who don't want to answer this question from themselves or aren't very knowledgeable about a lot of study techniques, this is basically what you would do. You can download mind maps, flashcards, practice questions, past paper questions, everything from online if you're giving a board exam. But if you're not giving a board exam, hopefully you have a smart friend or just a classmate who will let you borrow some of her notes or his. Now, if you're trying to learn new information, what I personally recommend is you either go ask your teacher to explain the concepts to you, or you watch a YouTube video on it, or you ask one of your friends to explain it to you. If you watch a YouTube video to understand a concept, don't passively watch it. Watch interactive classes which have practice questions. And if you can't find interactive classes and you just find the regular lectures, every couple minutes of the lecture, pause and take notes. Take notes of what you understood, take notes on what you don't understand. If you don't understand, try to rewatch the thing. For revision, personally, I would recommend you use mind maps, whether that's getting them from online or making them yourself. But personally, making a mind map takes a lot of time, especially if you want to make good ones. But trust me, if you make a mind map on a particular topic, you will understand that topic just 10 times better. A couple months ago, I had a history exam on a topic which I didn't understand very well because there was a lot of information in it. Now, instead of highlighting notes or reading my book, I decided to make a mind map just like this. Now, this gave me a good overview on everything there was, and it gave me a good overview on what event came after what. This mind map looks kind of small because it is small. Took me around 2 to 4 hours to make. Yes, it takes a long time, but I understood the concepts much faster than I would if I just went and tried to memorize everything. Now with mind maps, something which is also preached heavily in the whole study community in YouTube is past papers. The reason why it's so heavily promoted is because it's really good. I want you to open up a past paper once you've done a fairly good amount of revision, try to answer each one as much as you can, and then look at the mark scheme. I know there's a lot of teachers that will go, mark scheme's only for teachers, you're not meant to understand it. Trust me, if you want to do good, look at the mark scheme. Use the mark scheme as checking. And the last sort of revision technique that I would highly recommend, this is how I was able to cram a lot of information in a very short period of time, is Feynman technique. And Feynman technique is even better if you teach the content to another person. I'll be honest, if you use the Feynman technique and you use it well, and you have a friend who is actually trying to interact and understand the concepts with you and is asking you questions as well, trust me, you will retain like upwards of 90% of the content that you teach them. Feynman technique is one of the best study techniques out there. It's very simple. If you do it with another person, it works incredibly well, and it's also how I was able to cram so much content in such a short period of time. By the way, I don't recommend cramming in the slightest bit. I know it's heavily promoted on my channel because I am lazy, but if you have board exams, cramming is one of the worst things you can do to yourself. Because I needed to relearn the same content 3, 4, 5, 6, upwards of like 10 times because I crammed and then I forgot. I crammed and then I forgot. But why would you do that to yourself? Just learn slowly and you'll do so much better. If you have any other problems relating to Ramadan or studying in general, put them down in the comment section. I might even make a whole video on it. So yeah, with all that said, go and live life and subscribe.